Are revisions a bad thing? And why did they do this today? I know who knows. Stephen Moore, author of Trumponomics. He also has been connected with the Project 2025 administration. I'm glad your communication worked out. I'm sure you would have said that I was censoring you if the shot hadn't worked out. Stephen Moore, thank you for being with us. I don't know that you got to hear any of this. First, the data that you said that you have that nobody else has, did you share the data? Will you share the data?
Absolutely. By the way, I agreed with a lot of what you just said. Not everything, but I agreed with a lot of what you just said about the economy. So I'm going to give you a B today in economics. So look,
it's better than I did in economics.
I did meet with President Trump today, and we did talk a lot about the economy. Look, here's my theory about this. You're right that a lot of the trade turmoil at the beginning of the year probably did hurt the labor market. There were a lot of factories could not get the parts that they needed. There were a lot of manufacturing firms in the same situation. And so there was a lot of havoc and turmoil. But I do believe, and I'm a free trade guy, you know that about me. I believe in free trade. I like this. I think international trade is so important for all countries. But what Trump has been able to do, and you got to admit this, is he's getting some trade deals where he's forcing other countries to lower their tariffs on us. And if he can do that and we can get a fair trade situation, I think that benefits everybody. So that's kind of my take on the economy right now. I'm pretty bullish because we got this tax bill done. The trade bills that are coming forward seem to be pro-America. And what's not to like about that?
The outcomes, right? I'm with you in theory. That if it's good for America, who wouldn't like that? I get it. In fact, I may like it if it's good for America, even if it's not as good for other countries, because I am American. So, let them worry about themselves a little bit, right? It's got to be about proportionality.
I get it.
But one, when do you give us the data that shows that I guess you were counting up the revisions. Are you saying that you have data that shows it's not the aggregate of, it's the revisions, right?
So I don't want to get too much in the weeds here just because but what we showed today in our report was that if you take the initial jobs reports that come out every Friday morning, the first Friday of every month, and I've been studying that stuff for 30 years, that's the headline numbers. That's, Chris, the number that everybody pays attention to. And then they get revised in the second month and the third month. And in fact, in the last report that you were just talking about, we had huge revisions downward. Now, I don't think that was any political manipulation. I just don't think they're counting the jobs very well. But what we did in this report was looked at what had happened in 2023 and 2024, Biden's last 2 years in office. And what we found is from the time they made the original estimates of what the jobs were to the time they made the final adjustments, they revised downward by about 1.5 million jobs. That's a big number. That's a big revision. And some people could say, well, gee, that's not just a random error if you have that big of a revision. I'm not making that point. I'm just saying I don't think the numbers are very good, and we need good numbers if we're going to make good economic policy.
Right. But all right, help me with two things. One, I don't really hold you responsible on the first point. And in fact, I respected today. It's not easy to stand next to the President of the United States, period. But it's not easy to stand next to him and, have him say something. You'd be like, well, I don't know that it's intentional, but no matter how it happened, it's incompetent. Good for you for drawing that distinction, because I think that you happen to be right. You don't have any proof that this was intentional or done to deceive, correct?
No.
Okay.
No,
and you haven't even put out the data yet. Right. So you haven't even put out the data yet that you're saying you looked at. So we all got to look at the data for ourselves. Not that I don't trust you.
By the way,
it's just that, I don't trust you.
Let me just interrupt you for 1 second, Ben, because that data that I was just talking about with respect to the jobs, that's available to anyone if you want to go back and just count.
No, you said I have data that nobody else has.
So that was related to the other part of this press conference was related to the income data. So just to clarify that.
Gotcha. Okay. So thank you for the clarification. And Stephen showed that income was going up about $1,000 per family, and that's you want to see progress. Yeah. So I don't know why the president says it's intentional, except that it's a politically savvy thing to say in our current environment. But that's for him to answer for, not you. The second one is that they're not good at the job. I don't have to tell you this. Nobody says that to me. They say that they don't like the way we do the early reports and that there's too much pressure on giving people early information, but that our economic statistics are the gold standard, and the only thing that's made people question that was the reductions in staffing that the Trump administration just made to the people who do the counting, and that they're now having to base it more on estimates than actual data than they used to. So if anything, the counting may get worse. What do you make of that?
So there's an old saying, Chris, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The real issue is whether the numbers they come out with are accurate. And right now they're not. And it's a part of that is not, it has nothing to do with politics. It's the same problem we have with polling that's done, political polling. Do you have a direct line service of phone in your house anymore?
No.
No, most people don't. So the way we used to do surveying, calling off on their home phone, well, now they have cell phones. Oftentimes we don't have their numbers. The response rates are much, much worse. And that's why you get these kind of crazy results. Again, I'm not bemeaning anyone. I'm saying we have to do this much better. We have to find new techniques to find out how many jobs were really created over the months. Because look, government policy, employment policy by businesses, all of this stuff is really affected by when we want to take a pulse of the economy, Chris, the most important number that comes out every month is the jobs number.
Right. No, I'm with you. It's just that I don't believe that they were less accurate during Biden than they were during the Trump administration before it, or the Obama administration before that, or that they are right now.
I do. And the reason I do is just I think the numbers have gotten worse and worse over time. And again, I'm not making a political point. I think they were worse under Trump than they were under Obama. I think they were worse under Obama than Bush. In other words, I'm saying a whole revamp of, by the way, Trump said today he wants to redo the census. I'm all for that. I think the 2020 census was one of the worst censuses we've ever taken, partly because of COVID, partly because it did become political in a lot of states. And so let's get honest numbers.
Well, did he say that he wanted to change how we count or who we count? Didn't he say that he doesn't want to count non-citizens?
He does. He wants to he wants to not count illegal immigrants.
Oh, I thought he said non-citizens, because they're more than illegal immigrants. Right?
I don't remember.
But I'm just saying, look, again, I get the politics of it. I think the politics are savvy. I think you have some wood to chop. One, you got to make the case for people that this can be done better, and that it's worth looking at the last 2 years of the Biden administration and not just looking at them right now. Because if we want to look at bad revisions downwards, you've got them on your watch right now. We don't need to look back at Biden. That's my point. But Stephen, I appreciate the case you're making, and I appreciate you coming on here to make it. It's great for my audience to have access for the people who are making the news when they're making it. So thank you for coming on.
Love coming on yourself, Chris. Anytime. You got me when you need me.
Take care, and thank you for the B. That's better than I did in college. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.